Liliana Rivera, Bobby Vaughn, Andrea Fernandez. Do we have a quorum?
We do have a quorum. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. So I hope you had a great Thanksgiving holiday, as this is the last meeting of the year and we are moving closer to the holiday season. I would like to wish each and every one of you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. 2020 had been an unprecedented year. We were just discussing that a few minutes ago. However, hope springs eternal. Hope will galvanize our courage and mobilize our energy and vitality to face the challenges of the future. Let us continue to help one another, be kind, be understanding to others, including ourselves. It is a tall order that understanding others is a constant struggle, especially for me, but will enable us to create important works and achieve equity. We have received 164 responses to our survey, and the Commission and the community support all of the 26 approaches that we have identified. None of the approaches will be eliminated. On the survey responses, one can glean a range of community opinions. Some may have limited understanding of racism and inequity. We believe that a general lack of understanding of racism and inequity is a key issue related to inequity. It is one of the reasons why we believe this commission is extremely important. We welcome your continued thoughtful and engaging questions at the breakout sessions today to ensure that we are addressing the relevant issues. The survey captured only a convenient and not a random sample, so we consider it to be one point of information and recognize that it's not statistically significant. The findings did not represent the community as a whole, but only those of the responders. It is up to this body to make the decision based on the knowledge we gained from the experts, the data and facts that we have accumulated, and the input from the survey. And we always promise transparency. To move forward, we need to prioritize the top 10, to assess their feasibility. This is what we will try to achieve today. Keep focused on our common goal, that is a more equitable South San Francisco. So I assume that everybody has seen the minutes of the meeting, and if you have any comments, please speak up or convey. So
Mark, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
Oh, it's Mark Nogales? I can see.
Yeah. Still can't hear you.
Mark, can you nod if you can hear me? Great. Are you on the Spanish interpretation channel by any chance? No. Okay. Because we could hear you before. I think maybe try logging off and logging back in, see if that fixes it. Sorry, Mark.
It should just take a few minutes, right? So we might as well wait for Mark. I think he wants to talk.
And a few more commissioners. I'm sure Lisa has it, but a few more commissioners have joined as well.
You're on mute right now, Mark. Were you saying something? Mark,
Hold on, I need to unmute him.
you're on mute.
Hold on.
Oh,
Okay. Can you say something now, Mark?
there.
No.
I was just gonna approve.
There we go.
Yes,
You
yes.
I
just
can
came
hear you
through.
now.
Okay.
I think
I
you
was
just have to yell.
I was. I can do that. I was just gonna say, if there's no comments, I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes. So
I see.
Yeah.
So it has been moved by Mark. Any second?
I'll second Norm Faria.
Great. So it has been moved and seconded that the minutes of the previous meeting be approved. Now it's our time to, do we still have a raise hand here?
We
I don't
don't,
see.
unfortunately. But we can, if folks can raise their hand on the video, that will suffice. Great. And looks like it's unanimous of the folks that are here, so approved.
Oh, there is the reaction there.
Okay.
So I think the minutes of the meeting has been moved and seconded and approved, isn't it?
Correct.
Okay. So now I'll turn this over to Kim.
Great. Well, thank you, Chair Nicholas. It's really nice to be together. I feel like as we're ending this 2020, it's ever more important to be working on these topics to address racial and social inequities. So I'm really grateful for all of your hard work and good questions, and looking forward to being together today. On that note, I'll go over the agenda. So the goals are all about taking the 26 and now actually 27 approaches that we've been talking about and identifying priorities for the first year of implementation. So again, as Chair Nicholas was saying, we are not eliminating per se any of the approaches, so that's the good news. But we do need to identify where we're going to start this important work. So today is all about that. We're going to have a chance to look at various forms of input related to the approaches. We're going to have some public comment and small group breakouts like we did last time. We really like that. And then we're going to look at some outcomes related to the approaches so that it gives you another perspective on making sure that this first year is focused on the range of topics that we've looked at, as well as identifying and really working towards the change we want and need to see. Okay, so with that, we're going to have another kind of reflection exercise or grounding exercise. We'll have a brief presentation on the range of input that we've heard so far, including the community survey report results. And then we're going to have an opportunity to break into small groups like last time and look a little more closely at the approaches. And then we'll look at outcomes and talk about specific outcomes that we've drafted. And I'm looking at Maria working really, really hard. So I'm just going to slow down and make sure that she has a minute to translate, because simultaneous translation is a lot of work. So really appreciate your work, Maria. Thank you. And then at the end of today, we are going to have an opportunity to hear from everyone to choose the top approaches for the first year of implementation. So that's how we're going to end today. And then we'll talk about next steps. So just a couple reminders about public input. We have 2 public comment periods like we did last time. And if anyone is interested in sending more information or questions, please send it to the email here. And for the public comment that we have today, we'll be asking folks to talk for up to 1 minute in order to be able to hear from as many people as possible. So a little bit about the process. We are officially in phase 2. So have made a lot of progress. And as a reminder, phase 2 is taking what we've looked at in phase 1 and refining, so narrowing and then refining and going deeper on these prioritized approaches. And then phase 3 is about specific implementation actions. But we're always thinking about implementation as we're doing this. So we're in meeting number 7, and the meetings that are coming up, take note of these dates. They're the 3rd Wednesday of the month for now. If we need additional meetings, we can discuss that. And during that time, we'll be bringing back information to you about implementation recommendations related to the approaches that we've prioritized today. So always want to keep the group agreements at the forefront. As Commissioner Nicholas mentioned, focusing on our common goal, really wanting to hear from folks as we think about how to make this work come alive. What are the partnerships that we want to think about, community relationships, really listening, active listening, being open to new ideas, and then maybe stepping back and stepping up. If you're someone who hasn't spoken as much, we want to hear from you. And just one mic. Want to make sure that everyone has a chance to talk. All right, so with that, I think we'll have Sharon or Myra. Lead us through a reflective exercise.
Is Sharon here? If not, I can start it.
Go ahead and start it, Myra. I'm here.
Oh, okay. So, it's important as you guys are doing this amazing work to try to address the complicated issue of racism. A lot of times people don't know what racism really means. So we thought we would look at the definitions and then ask about your personal experiences, either as a target or an observer. And so when we look at structural racism, that of course is creating institutions that create a system that negatively impacts communities of color and people of color. Structural racism, that is. Institutional racism would be those policies and practices, procedures even, that work for the betterment of one group of people over the other, in this case, white people over people of color. And individual racism, prejudgment, bias, discrimination, that's based literally on the color of someone's skin. So when we look at those definitions and we all kind of, embrace those definitions, let's go to the 2 questions. And the question for each of the commissioners is, number 1, either of these. Describe briefly a time when you personally experienced racism in action, or if you haven't had that, describe for us very briefly an example of when you observed something that you considered and you felt was racist or an example of racism. So with that, who's going to go first, Paige?
We can let people, I'm not sure how you'd like to go. If people want to volunteer, commissioners should be able to unmute themselves, so they can go in any order.
All right, who's the first commissioner to give us an example?
Commissioner Hermes, looks like you raised your hand.
Yes, good afternoon to everybody. Straight to the point, I witnessed 2 years ago on my neighborhood action from our police department that I think it was not too young residents, that he was doing, he was riding the Lime bike on Linden, and somehow he was was asked to stop doing wheelies. We learned that one after, but prior to that, um, we had like 3 cars from the police department in our block, and we didn't know what was happening. This person was we couldn't see his face, and he was treated uh, uh, like he was a criminal, right? And he was yelled, and there were 3 policemen standing by. So I get out of the house and I asked one. I said, "Officer, what is going on?" And he said, "Well, you know, he was doing some wheelies. He was riding this bike, and that reason is that he didn't have the helmet." And I said, "Okay." This morning I took that bike too, and I didn't have a helmet. I said, "Well, you gotta be 18 and older." And I said, "That's interesting because I didn't see anywhere in the city that is a sign we deploy this program pilot that says that, even though probably the law, I didn't know, right?" So that's one. And two, when the person turned around, we realized that he was a kid. He was a 14-year-old kid. He was always scared. He was being asked questions, like basic questions like name, and he was blocked. His brain was blocked. And this person was pretty much bullying him. And we didn't know what to do. We kind of stand by too, because it's hard to get in the middle of something. And the father came a few minutes after, and he was the father, Spanish speaking. He didn't know what to do, and he was given a ticket, I believe, for 250, and pretty much, gotta watch your kid. And there was a second kid that he ran with his bike, different bike. It was not a bike, and another police car followed him to a park. And this kid was white, and his mom happened to be on that corner. Well, the kid went behind his mom, and the mom responded to the officer that was chasing this kid and said, "Why you're chasing?" And they had a dialogue. I don't have the time to explain the dialogue, but the dialogue was pretty much, "Get away from my kid." And the officer left. But they come back to the Hispanic guy on the other block and pretty much give him the ticket. So it was a beautiful Sunday, September, and to my head was like, why that has to happen? When this 14-year-old kid becomes 20 years old or more, reputation about the policeman. I would, because I was treated and I was shocked. And I took the time to call the police department looking for Jessaso Party. It was not easy to get hold of him. And I got of the second in command, I forgot, is a person with a mustache. And I tried to explain to him, and he kept telling me that on his city, nothing is going to be, and I'm just making a comment, and I want to ask you, how do you approach, if you have this scenario, a kid on the bike.
Hermes,
Sorry.
I just, I wanted to reflect back what I heard. So, because we were having a little bit of a hard time hearing you, but we really appreciate you sharing your experience. And it sounds like you're illustrating what you observed as different treatment.
Yes.
And
I tried to
and then
I tried to get hold of the head to talk about it, and I was not successful.
Okay.
And that's
Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing. Obviously, these stories are difficult to hear, and obviously more difficult to experience. Who's the next commissioner who can share an observation or a personal experience with us?
I can go. So I'll just go with the most recent episode. So being an elected official, we get emails from folks.
Mark, can you speak louder?
Yeah, can you hear me now? Yeah,
Yes.
okay. So as an elected official, we get emails all the time. And I received an email from an individual basically attacking me and saying racist things, which I will not repeat. And they were basically they were telling me to go back to my country. And they're attacking me for a lot of things. And it made me realize that, there are things that I do that people will not like. And that's because of the color of my skin. And it also reminded me that I'm not going to stop fighting for what I believe in. That the best way to combat this, that this hate towards me and this racism towards me, is to continue to what I do and to serve the people that elected me. And so it was very eye-opening in the sense that that someone would send things like that to me just based upon the color of my skin. But the best way for me to beat that is to show up every day. And that's what I've been doing. So.
Thank you. Thank you. That's tough. So does anyone else have, any of the other commissioners have something that they would like to share in terms of an observation or a personal experience?
Many years ago, it was right after the opening of classes, and I went to Target in Colma to get the covers for my children's books. So that was many years ago. So at the time, the lights of the cars are not automatically on when you're driving. And so apparently I didn't turn it on because I was in a rush. I was stopped by a Colma police officer. And the first question was, do you speak English? I was like, yes, I do. But apparently, if I'm a white woman, he won't even ask that, even though I don't speak English. But the way that he asked me, do you speak English? And I said, yes, I do. And he even reported me because I was asking him, so officer, I just forgot, I'll turn it on now. I was just a block away from Target. And he said, you are just, I forgot what he said, but 2 weeks after that, I got a letter from DMV. They're requesting me to take the exam that I wasn't capable of driving in the United States. And up to this day, whenever I pass by the whole Colma police station, but that was a very long time ago, and it was just sad that But I think it's the police officer himself who doesn't like people like me, because I've never experienced it from other places.
Do we have anyone else who would like to share? Please do.
I'll go. I have a coworker who's of color, and a client called in and spoke to her over the phone, and then later that day came in. And when he came in and talked to, he asked for my friend, my coworker, he made a comment like, oh, I didn't know you were Black. You sounded so professional on the phone. You sounded white. And just a statement like that, the preconceived notion about how people are supposed to talk or what professional, just relating it to race is Amos. That's probably the most recent racist example I've experienced.
Thank you. Who's next?
I'll go next. I've seen a lot of it over the years, but I think that the most blatant racism that I'd seen was, I lived in Texas for 2 years, and it was just, in California, I know it exists, it's just not so blatant. And my husband and I were exploring, and we were asking people for directions, and somebody came up when we were asking, where we should go, and what places we should visit. And somebody actually told us, you don't want to go over there. That's the dark side of town. I didn't even know what to say. I mean, I was like so shocked, but it happened.
Yeah. So you can see that what you guys are working on is so big. You're trying to cure for attitudes, prejudgment, certain behaviors. Kim and Paige, do we have time for more to share, or how are we doing time-wise?
I think if we wanted to have a couple more people share, that's fine.
Okay.
I'll go.
And
Commissioner Bobby? Oh, I don't hear him. Do you guys?
Can't hear you, Bobby.
we want to hear you though.
We can't hear you.
Here. Maybe log off and log back on quickly.
It's funny, we heard him at first.
It may have been me. This is Norm. I spoke unless you thought I was Bobby.
Bobby might need to
Sorry, we
log
can't
back
hear
in.
you.
No, can't hear you, Bobby. Try logging off and logging back in again. That's what I did.
Maybe someone else can share while he's doing that.
Yeah.
Do we have
I'll go ahead. This is Norm. It goes back when I was a lot younger. I was there, and it actually covers two areas: individual racism and institutional. I was over at a friend's house and his parents who were there, and his father and his parents were just throwing out more bias and discrimination statements than you can imagine. I mean, it was blatant. And now where I kick it back to institutional is later on, his father had a business and hiring people. So a friend I was at school with, I says, well, why does he only hire one race? And because he then played very bluntly, he says, because my parents feel that this race, and they didn't, whether it was Black, Hispanic, they just had this predetermined notion of anybody who was not a white-skinned individual didn't have the intelligence or the ability to work. And that was my first experience of someone who was so blatant and didn't hide it. And it just stuck with me. And this was 25 years ago, but it stuck with me to this day.
It does stick with you. And obviously, as a woman of color, I've had experiences as well, more than I could count. And so, once again, to reiterate, what you're doing is so important. I think it was special for me to hear from each of the commissioners, to hear from the commissioners who shared that they get this concept. How can you cure for something when you don't know what it is and when you don't have a perception of what it does to a community? So thank you for all of those who shared. I'm assuming we didn't get Commissioner Bobby back, huh?
He is on, but I think
commissioners to hear from the commissioners who shared that they get this concept. How can you cure for something when you don't know what it is and when you don't have a perception of what it does?
Somehow we're hearing some
So thank you for all of those.
repeat.
I'm assuming
I think we're on the Spanish channel.
Yeah, what about now?
Oh, we got you.
we can hear you
How's it
now.
working?
Thank you.
Now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So somehow we're hearing some. Oh, wait.
There's a weird delay, but we are hearing you, I think, Bobby.
Oh, we got you.
We can hear you now.
You can hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Great. Is that a thumbs up?
Oh, wait.
There's a weird delay, but
Oh.
we are hearing you,
Okay.
I think, Bobby.
That's okay. Well, it wasn't earth shattering.
Yes, we can hear you now.
So that is a yes. All right. I was just going to say that I guess one of the things that came to my mind was about I've been in various professional situations, positions in which I was tasked with leading an effort around anti-racism and diversity. And it was very clear to me after a while that that position was sort of a diversity and name only position. And this sort of gets to kind of this kind of structural racism that we're talking about, where I was put in a position as a person of color to make an organization look good on paper, but not given the resources to actually affect any meaningful change, right? And so only in an environment that is a racist environment would you have a position that is designed to fail, and that be seen as progressive, or that be seen as, you know, as positive in some way. So, you know, I personally felt victimized in a sense, because I was put in a position where I couldn't do my job, and couldn't do my job. My evaluations, you know, were poor because I couldn't do the things that I was purportedly called in to do. So that comes up in not sort of an racist incident, but the way that this particular institution thought about diversity.
That's an important point, because structural racism and not creating a system that can handle and cure for these situations means the work is just window dressing. And so I think that's an important point as we move on. So with that, Kim and Paige, thanks so much for letting me participate in the grounding exercise. It really spoke to me a lot.
Yeah, I keep thinking, you know, I think it's so critical to keep all of those levels of racism really front and center, because these are pervasive systems that we need to really think carefully about in order to change. And they do exist at the systemic level, at the institutional level, and on the individual level. So thinking with these experiences and perspectives as we move forward today, I'd like to keep them close. So let's look for a minute at the community survey findings and commission input related to the approaches that we've been talking about. I'll go through this pretty briefly. So we, as you know, gathered community input in addition to the commission meetings with the public comment. We had the community survey open from October 26th to November 18th. The surveys were in 4 languages, and we heard from 164 respondents. It is important, I think there was a couple questions, and thank you, Kayla, for reaching out to ask good questions about the survey. It was designed to be a convenient sample, as Commissioner Chair Flores